Look, let me first say Archbishop Desmond Tutu is a larger-than-life figure in South Africa. I mean, he played such a major role in our freedom struggle, and that is why he was given the Nobel Peace Prize in his fight for justice and for the freedom of all South Africans. And in memory of the role that he played, not just in South Africa, but I think he was a global figure, the Tutu Foundation inaugurated the annual International Peace Lecture named after Archbishop Tutu. And the first lecture took place in, I think it was 2011, in Brussels. And the first lecture was delivered by Dalai Lama, because Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu were very close friends.
Okay.
Very, very close friends. And at that stage, I was ambassador to the European Union, Belgium and Luxembourg, and I was present at that lecture where Archbishop Tutu and Dalai Lama were together on the podium. And that is an important international lecture, and this year, Honorable Shashi Tharoor, Dr. Shashi Tharoor was invited to deliver the keynote address. So he traveled to Cape Town at the end of November, where he delivered this address. And I think it was a very appropriate choice, because Dr. Tharoor is a global figure. His time at the United Nations as Under Secretary General, he excelled at that. And as diplomats, we all knew his name.
Absolutely right.
And, he's made a global impact. His views on global affairs are widely sought, not just in India, I think globally. And having the privilege to have met him prior to his travel to South Africa recently was a great privilege to interact and have an exchange with him on current global affairs. I think he's a political guru in terms of international affairs.
Yes.
And that's why it's not surprising that he heads your international, your External Affairs Committee on international relations at the moment. So I think, his impact still continues, not just in Indian politics, but I think, as I've said, his voice resonates and his view on the global environment in a big way.
I recall my meeting with Dr. Shashi Tharoor sometimes back. Mr. Anil Shastri invited Dr. Shashi Tharoor. We would like to know that you are the recipient of very prestigious and eminent Pravasi Bharati Samman Award in 2019. And apart from that, in 2023, you got the Order of Friendship Award from the Russian government, sir. So we are very happy that you are here with us. We celebrate Mandela Day in India on 18th July, sir. He visited India in 1997, sir. So please tell us about this Nelson Mandela Award that you give every year, sir.
Well, look, the International Mandela Day that is celebrated on July 18th, which is the birthday of Nelson Mandela, was declared by the United Nations in 2010. The General Assembly took a decision to dedicate an international day based on Nelson Mandela, because Nelson Mandela was a global figure.
Yes.
And the values that he stood for, which of course his whole life was about fighting for the freedom and dignity, not just of South Africans, but of humanity as a whole. And he dedicated his life through a great deal of pain and struggle, spending 27 years in prison, and then leaving prison not as a bitter man, but as a statesman that preached reconciliation. And I think that's very difficult to do, having been 27 years of the most important years of your life being taken away and put into a tiny cell for the major part of the 27 years. and to come out of prison and have this philosophy of forgiveness and reconciliation. It's unique in many ways. There was no bitterness. And as President Mandela himself said, as I walked towards the door leading to my freedom from prison as he was being released, he said, I realized that if I don't leave behind all the bitterness and hatred, that I will continue being in prison even after walking out of these doors. And I think that was a very important lesson for all of us in South Africa, because apartheid was a very painful exercise where people lost their lives, families disappeared, children were left without parents, people were incarcerated for many, many years, trying to get rid of all opposition to apartheid. Of course, the regime failed. But what you saw in South Africa was Nelson Mandela endeared a new thinking and a new mentality amongst the people of South Africa by himself displaying that spirit of forgiveness, that spirit of reconciliation, and that spirit of being inclusive, that South Africa belongs to all. And that is why he put forward, one of the first things of his presidency was the idea of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. For those that were part of the oppressive regime and those that were oppressed, to come together and speak about their experiences in a spirit of reconciliation and forgiveness. And he chose Archbishop Desmond Tutu to lead the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And I think it was a very appropriate choice. And that is why South Africa could move forward, because we dealt with our history in a very open way. And I think that's very unique about South Africa, that we created a platform where those that were responsible for all of the pain and suffering could come and seek forgiveness, could meet the very victims with whom they treated in a very unjust way, in a very inhumane way. And for the victims to be able to say, I forgive you. And that, I think, is unique in terms of South Africa's experience and what helped us to move forward from this very divided, painful past, to move forward in the spirit of national reconciliation, in the spirit of us all now accepting that we are all South Africans. Yes, we had this very painful history, but let us collectively build a future that is inclusive and that South Africa belongs to everyone that lives in the country.
Thank you so much for your honest views about Nelson Mandela Day that we celebrate here. And you have also shown a path towards India and South Africa relationships, as both the countries have started diplomatic relation in 1993. And this year you celebrated the 30 years of diplomatic relations and G20 chairmanship of South Africa. In South Africa, sir, we have around 1.3% of total population as an Indian population.
About close to 3%.
Close to 3%.
Close to 3%.
Okay. And we heard that, sir, you have done PhD doctorate degree in religious studies and the Oriental histories. And apart from that, you have got the honorary doctorate degree from University of International Business and Economics, China. So recently, sir, you traced the place of your ancestors near UP. Please tell us about this story.